Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Les Caves virtual Christmas tasting. We're kind of technophobes here at Les Caves, so it's a miracle that we've managed to do anything like this. In fact, half of our staff members didn't even know what YouTube was until I proposed the idea. My name's Daniel, I'm the shop manager here at Les Caves de Pérène, and I'm joined by my colleague Stu.
Hello.
I've been drinking wine professionally for 13 years. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Whilst working in restaurants up and down the UK, starting in the Isle of Skye and making my way down to glamorous Farnborough. That was a cracking move. And I ended up working in the wonderful world of retail at Les Caves de Pérène, surrounded by all of these fantastic natural wines. My colleague Stu, he's came late to the wine industry, but he's doing his utmost to drink as much as possible, as quickly as possible, to gain as much knowledge as possible. He had a glittering career in the care sector before coming here. So, it's enough rambling, and without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get started. Anything better than a glass of champagne? I don't think so, which is why I have a glass here, and hopefully you do as well. We're trying the Jean-Paul de Ville Carte d'Or, non-vintage. Carte d'Or not to be confused with the ice cream, obviously, coming in at 12% ABV. It's a blend of 70% Pinot Noir and 30% Chardonnay. We've been working with de Ville for ages and ages, decades. I think it was one of the first champagnes we ever stocked at Les Caves. Our warehouse manager, Pete, has been working here for over 25 years, and he says that it's been on the list ever since he remembers. So we've got a great relationship with them. They make a really fantastic level of champagne. It was started in 1969, and they've just been making great leaps and bounds ever since then. They don't really have all of their own vines, but they do buy a few grapes in from other vineyards around about. So let's give it a wee try. Yeah, on the nose you've got those beautiful stewed fruits, maybe a touch of pear, a nice biscuitiness coming in there as well. It just really smells alive. It smells like a really lovely champagne. On the palate, yeah, so you've got beautiful stewed fruit flavours coming through on the palate, slight biscuitiness, quite a broad palate, quite bready, but really great acidity as well, and really kind of vivacious and delicious, and just a great way to start an evening or a morning or an afternoon at any time of day. Champagne is good any time of day. So I hope you're sitting there enjoying this lovely half bottle of champagne, and without further ado, we are now heading on to the white wines.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your first little tasting with the champagne. And we're going to start the whites off here with the Domaine Pellet. So this is 100% Sauvignon Blanc from Menetou Salon. So geographically there, we're right down the Loire Valley in the central vineyards. So right next to the very well-known Sancerre and Puy Fumé. So we're in really good company here. I think these wines stand shoulder to shoulder with these, but they're a little less known. So I think in this price bracket, you're actually getting a better drop. Henri Pellet, the current winemaker, is part of the fourth generation of Pellets to be making wine on this estate. They initially started out just making wine exclusively for their family. To consume with their lunches. There was no commercial aspects to it until the appellation of Menetou Salon gained official recognition in the late 50s, in 1959. Since then, they recognized the world-class status of their terroir and wanted to share their wines with the world. So let's jump in and see what we've got here. So from the appearance, we have a nice pale lemon color, a little bit of richness. So we've got some lees aging and a little bit of oak, but I don't think we're getting a huge amount of influence here from this. A little bit of viscosity on the edges of the glass there. It's alcohol is 13.5%, so that's probably what's causing that. Nice pale lemon color. So let's have a smell. Really lovely complexity on the nose there, getting some citrus flavors, obviously predominantly lime, perhaps a little herbal note in there as well, some blackcurrant leaf, maybe even some white peach as well. So let's have a taste. Pretty excited. Ooh, that acidity. Salivating there, that's delicious. Great Sauvignon Blanc. Definitely not out of control with the acidity. It's predominantly steel cask fermented, but does see a little bit of oak and a little bit of lees aging. So you're getting that slight bit of richness there. That's predominantly very clean, very precise. We're looking at sort of lime flavors, citrus on the palate. Really good minerality. Length is still there, tasting that lovely salinity. As far as food pairings go, just your classic Sauvignon pairings. So salad's always going to be great. Love my cherry tomatoes with Sauvignon Blanc. I think it just makes the tomatoes taste so ripe and fresh and sweet. So that's really lovely little pairing. Other than that, your salads, your lighter meats, and even your sort of grilled white fish are going to go absolutely perfectly. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, and we're going to move on to the next one.
Okay, so wine number 2. We're heading to Spain, to Ribeiro, to a winery called Myrrh. This is their 1040 cuvee, 2017, and comes in at 13%. Quite an interesting blend. It's a blend of Trexadura, Gadeo, Albarino, and Lardo. Myrrh is owned and run by Antonio Cajide. He learnt his craft from his grandfathers, who raised him until the age of 14, one of which had a couple of vineyards himself, and the other used to make barrels for the local wineries, as well as making some wine on the side, which he sold for a very high price in the local village, apparently. After that, Antonio started to work in the vines himself, but this wasn't enough to sustain him, so he had a variety of different jobs. These jobs included being a carpenter, a mechanic, a plumber, and a coffin maker, hopefully not all at the same time. Whilst he was doing these side jobs, he was saving money, and then in 2002, along with his brother, they bought up a whole load of vines, updated the family winery, and made Adega Myrrh. They make really cracking wines, really pure. If they need to use pesticides and herbicides, they're always organic, but in that part of the world, it's quite rare that they have to use them. And the wines are really fruit driven. So let's have a little crack at it. So first up, let's look at that color. It's a beautiful, bright golden color in the glass. The nose displays a wide variety of fruit: apples, pears, stone fruits, slight herbaceousness, touch of honey in there as well, really complex. On the nose, there's a slight kind of hint of vanilla coming from the oak aging. On the palate, those flavors are transferring, but you've kind of got rich honeyed pear, apple. Again, that honey quality is coming through on the mid palate there, and it finishes almost with a kind of lemony, lemon rind acidity on the finish. Sense of richness on the palate. I think that's coming from the oak aging. I really enjoy it. I'm a big kind of Burgundy fiend, and I know whilst this isn't Burgundy, it's almost like the mouthfeel is quite similar. You kind of get that round richness and then really nice direct acidity, keeping everything fresh. So quite a cool little alternative wine, quite an interesting blend. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we're on to the next one.
Welcome back, and next up we have the last white of this tasting. And here we have the Chassagne Montrachet from Patrick Myrrh. So Chassagne Montrachet doesn't really need too much of an introduction. One of the most famous appellations in the world. So obviously we're in white Burgundy here, 100% Chardonnay in the sort of Saint-Aubin region, specifically obviously Chassagne Montrachet. On the bottle we have 12.5% volume. Vintage here is 2018. The Myrrh estate itself is an ancient family-run business with the current producer Patrick Myrrh taking over the estate in 1983 when he was just 20 years old. Since then, his daughter Barbara has joined to help out in 2005, and they have a nice synergy working together where Patrick is very at home working the vineyards, maintaining the canopy, very sort of scrupulous with all his methods of making sure all the fruit and canopy are very well managed. And then his daughter Barbara, she takes care of the blending and also the marketing. Both Patrick and Barbara work the whole vineyard to the principles of lutte raisonnée. So this applies to both the vineyard and the winery, whereas the organic certification just applies to the vineyard. So as a result of this, they don't use any pesticides in the vineyard. They regularly turn the soil to make sure it's well aerated, with their aim obviously being to maintain the vineyard in the most natural and preservable way. So let's have a little look and see what we're tasting. Straight away you can see a lovely sort of slightly darker yellow. I mean, it's still a sort of medium yellow color there. Perhaps a little bit of golden around the edges, just sort of denoting it's got a little bit of age on there. So this is the 2018 vintage, a couple of years, and it's also obviously seen some French oak. So that's going to be sort of contributing to the color. Let's see what we can smell. A little bit of reduction on the nose there. There's definitely some fruit, so citrus predominantly. Let's have another smell. Some flowers, something sort of flowery there, so some white flowers, I think. Let's jump in with a taste. What a treat to have a little bit of Chassagne Montrachet. So yeah, really, really good acidity there is the first thing I'm thinking about. Lovely, well integrated oak, so it's not overpowering, it's definitely there, but it's really well integrated with all the fruit. Just a real masterclass in balancing all those flavors together to make a really interesting, complex drop. Bit of minerality there, carrying it through, which is just still kind of tingling on my palate. I absolutely love well-crafted Chardonnay, and for Christmas, you know, gotta treat yourself and have something nice. Obviously this is going to go really well with your Christmas dinner if you fancy something white, but even just by itself, or as I said in a previous video, I love just cracking open a nice bottle of Chardonnay with some buttery popcorn and popping on my favourite movie. So I think whatever you choose to do, hopefully you enjoy it. And on to the next one. Cheers.
First red of the proceedings, and we're heading to the wonderful land of South Africa, to Swartland, and this is the Radford Black Rock 2016. Comes in at a juicy little 13%, and it's a blend of Syrah, Cinsault, Grenache, Carignan Mourvèdre, and Viognier. So kind of like a Rhone, southwest of France inspired blend. Radford Dale was set up by two drinking buddies, Alex Dale and Ben Radford. And let's be honest, how many fantastic ideas have come out of a little bit of pub chat? They set up the winery with the kind of aim to make it quite an iconic winery in South Africa. Ben, after a while, decided to move back to his home in Barossa, but Alex stayed on and is now head of the operation. And I certainly think it's one of the finest wineries in South Africa. They make really consistently great wines. The Black Rock Cuvée, all the fruit is sourced from bush vines out in Swartland that are all nestled in these little rocky outcrops. Alex Dale says, we've been working with these old bush vine vineyards in Swartland since 2003. The Swartland bears its name from Jan van Riebeek, who called this area of undulating landscape between the mountain ranges Het Zwarteland. I've probably murdered his name and also the language, so apologies for that. Het Zwarteland means the black land because of the local Renos de Bos plant there. When the rain falls, the land appears to be black from a distance. So a little nugget of information for you there. As you'd expect from a winery of this caliber, all the grapes are hand harvested. The utmost care is taken in the vineyard. When the wine is fermented, it's fermented in barrel with a tiny percentage of new oak, so there shouldn't be too much kind of overt vanilla flavours coming through. But let's have a little smell. Yeah, this is black fruits galore. Cherry, blackberry, blackcurrant. Maybe a hint of kind of raspberry jam in there as well, but you're getting all these really lovely spicy notes like kind of licorice and maybe a touch of Christmas spice as well, because it is the season. So on the palate, yeah, everything's in perfect balance. You got all that kind of weighty fruit coming in, but it's kind of fresher fruit. It's not so jammy. A lot of these kind of styles of wine you can find to be quite overly extracted and quite heavy going, but this stays really light on its feet. Even with that oak aging, there's not a huge amount of kind of oaky flavors. You kind of get it a little bit on the palate. Really nice tannins, good acidity to finish and keep everything light on its feet. An absolute little cracker.
Hello again and welcome back. We're going to carry on our journey through the red wines. Next up we have a region, an appellation that needs very little introduction. We have a Châteauneuf du Pape. This particular one is made at Domaine La Baroche. The vintage here is 2016. Winemaker Julien Barrault. The alcohol here is, expectedly high. Châteauneuf du Papes are notoriously very big wines, so we're going to expect the alcohol to be there. This is 15%. The story of Domaine La Baroche has a long, rich history. The family say that the Grenache is the king of Châteauneuf du Pape and that it's been running in their family veins since the 1400s. So a little bit about the actual wine. We're obviously looking at a blend here, predominantly made up of Grenache, followed by Mourvèdre, and then the rest is made up of a blend of Syrah, Cinsault, and a few other local varietals as well. Let's have a little peek. In terms of the winemaking, we're getting 4 months of maceration after harvest. It's then being fermented in large concrete vats, and then finally it's going to have a little bit of aging in large oak barrels. So let's see what that's come up with. Wow, that's really jumping out the glass there. The extra alcohol is really carrying some aromas. So we're getting some kirsch off there, a little bit of herbal, yeah, some spiciness, some pepper, as you might expect. Really delicious aroma. I could happily smell this all day, though I'm not going to do that. Going to have a taste. Oh, that's a big wine. Nice big blackberry fruit coming through there. Some kirsch still. Got that nice sort of spiciness, rounding it all out. That's a really, really lovely, elegant, great example of the power that is Châteauneuf du Pape. Pairings, obviously looking at some really big roast dishes here to sort of match the power of the wine. I think it's going to be cracking with a nice little lamb roast or something. Obviously, serve this at Christmas, nobody's going to complain. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this wine as well, and on to the next one.
We're on to the last red of the pack, and we have an absolute cracker. Some would say a Christmas cracker for you to try. It's the Castagna Genesis Syrah 2015 from Beechworth, Australia, coming in at 13.5%. In my opinion, Castagna are one of the most underrated wineries in Australia. For me, they're absolutely top 5 best producers, potentially in the world. Castagna is owned and run by Julian Castagna. He started making wine in 1998 with a handful of grapes and some help from local winemakers. Fast forward to present day and he's more than arrived on the natural wine scene. His wines are made naturally. He favours single varietals. Recently his son Adam has started making wine with him, and Adam is a little bit more experimental and wild and rock starish, I would have said. He starts making really interesting blends. His first cuvee was called Adam's Rib, and he's just a really cool, awesome guy. They both are. A lot of Australian reds can sometimes be super over extracted, really heavy on the alcohol and really jammy, and just after a couple of glasses your palate is so tired from being smashed around the face with all this kind of oak and jammy fruit. We call it the Parker effect. A lot of the Australian winemakers were making wines so they could get high Parker points, and thankfully, not that there's anything wrong with Robert Parker, but the Australian wine movement is now moving towards lighter styles, juicier fruit, and not such heavily extracted wines. So after bigging the wine up so much, let's hope it lives up to expectations. So on the nose, I tell you, this wine, red and black fruits galore, but fresh, no kind of jamminess here. But it's intermingled with all this amazing spice like cardamom, cinnamon, maybe a touch of clove. You're kind of getting a sense of the oak there as well that they use. On the palate, yeah, wow. The acidity is obviously evident, but it keeps everything so fresh and alive and vibrant. And you're getting those beautiful kind of red curranty, raspberry flavors coming through, even a touch of kind of black currant in there as well. It's just backed up by really clever use of oak. It's almost used as a slight seasoning at the back. You're kind of getting maybe flavors of white pepper. Again, kind of Christmas spice as well. And the length just keeps on going. This is a wine of great elegance and poise, and this would be worthy of any Christmas dinner, Christmas festivity, Christmas whatever. And I highly encourage you to explore the range and maybe treat yourself to a bottle this Christmas. So, on to the next wine.
Hello again and welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the tasting so far. We're going to round this set out with a dessert wine, and obviously we're going to carry on the theme of big hitters with arguably the biggest name in dessert wine with Sauterne. So specifically we're going to Chateau Fio, which is just south of the town of Sauterne. This guy is the 2010 vintage, really good bit of bottle age. Obviously you can age dessert wines forever. They just go the distance. The extra sugar and acidity just means they'll always be tasting great and just add to those extra sort of tertiary aromas and flavors with the more time you give them. Here we have 13.5% by volume. Chateau Fio was founded in 1709 by Romain de Fio. Today it's managed by one of his descendants, Henri. Henri works to organic and biodynamic principles. So there's manual harvesting, a lot of care and attention put into the vineyard, as you would expect. So moving on to the wine, we're looking at a blend here of predominantly Semillon. There's a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc in there, and finally just rounded out with a little bit of the muscadel. These are all fermented separately, and then after about 14 months, they're blended together and then matured for up to about 2 years in oak. Then they'll be bottled and aged again for a further 2 months at least. In this instance, obviously, it's been several years to get us to where we are. So in the glass, that amazing gold color is just so inviting. The viscosity, again, being a sweet wine, is just sticking to the edges, and I'm already salivating at the prospect of trying this. Let's have a smell. Delicious. All those flavors are so pronounced. So we're getting some really nice sort of dried apricot flavors there, some honeyed notes, a little bit of tropical, but it's predominantly stone fruits there. So let's have a taste. Lovely unctuous viscosity there. Just a beautiful, beautiful wine. Just salivating as well from the really good acidity, which is balancing out the sweetness. So just a lovely, lovely example of a cracking dessert wine. Now, this again will just pair with all of your classic dessert wine pairings. So obviously your desserts, poached pears again, your blue cheeses, particularly Roquefort, the salty cheeses are going to be absolutely incredible. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you've enjoyed this whole set. There have been some cracking wines. That's been a real treat for me to taste as well. So hopefully we'll see you again. Take care for now. Merry Christmas.